"Daddy, that homeless woman looks exactly like Mommy." The shout cut through the buzz of the evening crowd outside the upscale Sapphire Bistro in downtown Denver. Jason Lattimore, a successful fintech founder and single father, glanced down at his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, who was tugging insistently at his sleeve. He followed her pointing finger, and everything stopped. Sitting beside a trash can, bundled in torn jackets and holding a sign that read, "Hungry. Please help," was a woman whose face was identical to Elise, his late wife, who died of leukemia 4 years ago. Jason's heart jolted so violently he had to grip a lamppost to steady himself. His mind rebelled against what his eyes were showing him. It can't be. Elise had no siblings. Her parents insisted she was an only child. Yet here she was, or someone who could have been her twin, sifting through a plastic bag like millions of others ignored by society. The woman didn't notice the stare. She was focused on sorting a few scraps of bread. Her face, dirt-smudged but unmistakable in its features, radiated a sad familiarity. Jason's pulse roared in his ears. After building a tech empire, surviving boardroom ambushes, and navigating the vicious startup world, it was this one moment, a street-side encounter, that brought him to his knees emotionally. Lily's voice was a whisper now. "Daddy, are you crying?" Jason wiped his cheeks without realizing they were wet. Across the street, 33-year-old Marla Jennings had no idea her life was about to be unraveled by the gaze of a stranger. 2 decades on the streets had taught her not to look anyone in the eye. Not to hope, not to trust. Since escaping her last foster home at 14, she'd been invisible. Passed over by people in suits, tourists with cameras, and even social workers. But this man was still staring. "Excuse me," Jason approached cautiously, voice cracking. "May I ask your name?" Marla shrank back. The wealthy never meant well when they approached. Still, she met his gaze. "Marla," she said quietly, preparing to flee if needed. "Marla Jennings." Jason's breath caught. "Jennings," he echoed. No one had called her by her full name in years. On the streets, she was just MJ or Hey You. How did this man know? Jason reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his phone, hands trembling. He found a picture of Elise in his gallery and turned the screen toward her. "Do you recognize this woman?" Marla gasped. It was as if she were looking into a mirror. Only the reflection wore pearls and had her hair in a salon bun. Even the tiny scar near the jawline was the same. Who is she?" Marla whispered. "She was my wife," Jason said gently, crouching so their eyes were level. "She passed away 4 years ago." People bustled past them, unaware of the miracle or tragedy unfolding inches away. Marla's hands trembled. I've never seen her before, but she looks like me." Jason's mind spun. Elisa's family had always been guarded about her past. But could this be more than coincidence? Just then, a security guard from the restaurant approached. "Sir, everything all right here?" Jason nodded distantly, eyes locked on Marla. "I'm fine, thank you." Inside, he wasn't fine. His world had tilted off its axis. Jason couldn't sleep that night. The face of Marla haunted him. He spent hours scrolling through old family photos, zooming in on Elise's features, comparing them in his mind to the woman he had met. It wasn't just a resemblance, it was a genetic mirror. By morning, he made a decision. He would find out the truth. He contacted Vincent Crowley, a private investigator known for unraveling deep family secrets. Vincent had once tracked down a missing heir across 3 continents. This case, Jason warned him, might be even harder. "I need everything you can find on Marla Jennings," Jason said, forwarding the little he knew. "And anything Elise's family might have hidden." Across town, Marla lay curled in a shelter cot for the first time in years. Jason had given her a business card, along with a prepaid hotel room for 3 nights and a $100 gift card. She hadn't accepted it immediately, but when Lily handed her a flower from the restaurant bouquet and whispered, "You look like my mommy," Marla's resolve cracked. It was the first time in 2 decades that someone looked at her like she mattered. And now, as she stared at the soft blanket wrapped around her, a memory floated to the surface, one she had buried deep. A woman with soft brown eyes and a voice like music saying, "Hold your sister's hand, sweetheart. Don't let go." Sister? The word made Marla sit upright. Was that a dream or a memory? Meanwhile, Vincent had begun digging through public records. It was harder than expected. Marla had no official birth certificate. Her first appearance in the system was a child protection file at age 3. 12 foster homes followed, then a disappearance at 14. But something caught his eye. A hospital record from Denver County General 33 years ago listed twin girls born on the same day as Elise. Only one child was officially discharged with the mother. The other infant? No name, no paperwork, only an internal note. Transferred for private placement. Vincent's heart skipped. "Jason," he said over the phone, "I think your wife had a twin." And someone buried it. Jason felt the blood drain from his face. Elise had always believed she was an only child. Her mother, Evelyn Monroe, was notoriously private, always redirecting questions about Elise's early life. "Can we prove it?" "I'll need access to private medical archives and possibly old social services files," Vincent replied. "It might take a few days." Jason nodded, though Vincent couldn't see him. "Do it. Spare no effort." At that same moment, Evelyn Monroe was sitting in her sunroom sipping a chamomile tea when her phone rang. "Mom," the voice on the other end said, panic lacing every word. It was Elise's aunt, Lorraine. "Jason's poking around. He met someone on the street, a woman who looks just like Elise." Evelyn froze, the teacup trembling in her hand. "Lorraine," she whispered. "Do you think he knows? If he doesn't now, he will soon. What are we going to do?" Evelyn's voice dropped to a cold whisper. "We swore to take this secret to our graves. It dies with us." But Jason was already steps ahead. That afternoon, he met Marla at the hotel lobby. She looked cleaner, more rested, but her eyes still held years of caution. "I know this is a lot," Jason said gently. "But would you consider taking a DNA test? I'll cover everything, no obligations." Marla hesitated. "Why?" "Because if there's a connection between you and Elise, you deserve to know, and so does my daughter." She looked at Lily, who was coloring in a notebook nearby. The child waved. Marla blinked back tears. "No one's ever cared where I came from before." Jason smiled. "Then maybe it's time someone did." Vincent worked quickly. Within 48 hours, he gained access to a trove of archived foster care files, most of them stored in a dusty records warehouse on the city's outskirts. What he uncovered made him physically ill. "Jason," he said over the phone, voice heavy, "I found something, and you're going to want to sit down." Jason listened in stunned silence as Vincent laid it all out. A set of twin girls born in 1991, delivered to a young single mother under a fake name. One was taken home. The other vanished into the system without any traceable guardianship. "There's no formal adoption, no legal release," Vincent explained. "It looks like she was given away off the books. No court filings, no state approvals. Jason, this wasn't just negligence. It was intentional." Jason's jaw clenched. "And Marla?" "Matched every foster system file from age 3. She bounced between homes, none lasting more than 8 months. Abuse, neglect. Vanished at 14. Reappeared at 18 in arrest records for loitering and minor theft. Jason's heart sank. He had spent nearly 2 decades in Elise's loving orbit while her sister suffered silently, anonymously. Marla's DNA results were due any day, and although his mind said wait, his gut already knew. Meanwhile, Evelyn Monroe was growing frantic. She had thought time would erase the past. Elise was raised in privilege, attended the best schools, and married into Denver's elite. Why reopen wounds that were already healed? But as Jason's inquiries deepened, Evelyn's control began to slip. Lorraine called again. "He's close. I told you we should have destroyed everything years ago." "I couldn't," Evelyn hissed. "I kept the original certificate just in case. It's still in my safe." "You what?" Lorraine shrieked. "Get rid of it. If they find that—" Too late. Vincent had already obtained a court warrant to search the Monroe estate, citing evidence tampering and child endangerment. The safe was opened. Inside, bank ledgers, letters, and a birth certificate naming both twins, Elise Monroe and Marla Jennings. Jason stared at the document. It wasn't just proof. It was a monument to betrayal. He handed it to Marla in person. Her fingers trembled as she read the names. This means she knew," she whispered. "Your wife's mother knew about me." Jason nodded solemnly. "And chose to keep you away." Marla sat silently, eyes welling up. "I used to wonder as a kid if I was just forgotten, or maybe broken, something not worth keeping." Jason swallowed hard. "You weren't broken, you were stolen." That evening, Evelyn sat in her pristine living room, surrounded by silence and fading photographs of Elise. Jason stood across from her, Marla just behind him. "You owe her the truth," Jason said firmly. Evelyn's eyes were blank. She wouldn't understand. "She deserves to," Jason said, "because the world's about to know." 3 days later, the press conference was announced. What began as a private journey to uncover the truth had now become a public crusade for justice. Jason arranged it with a clear purpose: transparency. For Marla, for Lily, for Elise's memory, and for every voiceless child lost in the system. The venue was modest, a local community hall, but the atmosphere was electric. News vans lined the street. Bloggers, reporters, and curious onlookers packed the room. Jason stepped up to the podium, flanked by Vincent and Marla. The room hushed. 4 years ago, I lost my wife, Elise Monroe, to leukemia, Jason began, his voice steady. 2 weeks ago, I found her twin sister living on the streets of Denver, unbeknownst to anyone, abandoned by those who should have protected her. Gasps rippled through the crowd. She was not given up by accident. She was hidden, intentionally. Documents were forged, records erased, and the people responsible still walk free. Vincent held up a folder of evidence: the birth certificate, medical transfers, handwritten letters between Evelyn Monroe and an unlicensed adoption broker. Reporters erupted in questions. Was this legal? Did Elise know? Why now? Marla stepped forward. She looked elegant, if still a little unsure, in a donated blazer and newly braided hair. "My name is Marla Jennings," she said, gripping the microphone with both hands. "And for most of my life I was invisible. I've been cold, hungry, forgotten. But I'm not invisible anymore." The room fell silent. "For 20 years, I survived while my sister lived a life I was never even allowed to imagine. I don't want revenge. I want acknowledgement. I want the truth known, not just for me, but for every foster kid who's ever wondered if they mattered." As her voice cracked with emotion, dozens in the room wiped away tears. Jason added, "We're launching a foundation, the Elise and Marla Project. Its mission is to track and reunite families separated illegally by private adoptions, and to hold those responsible accountable." The announcement made headlines across the country within hours. Hashtags like #Justice for Marla and #Twin Truths trended nationwide, but the backlash came swiftly. Evelyn Monroe's attorneys sent cease-and-desist letters. They accused Jason of slander, threatened lawsuits, and denied any wrongdoing. Jason wasn't fazed. He had anticipated this, and he had prepared his final card. A recorded phone call between Evelyn and Lorraine, legally obtained by Vincent under Colorado's one-party consent law. On the tape, Evelyn's voice was clear. "We had to do it, Lorraine. We couldn't raise both. One child was manageable. Two would have ruined everything. Elise deserved a future. So we sold the other. What if someone finds the certificate? They won't. I've kept it hidden for 30 years. The clip aired on national television the following night. Public opinion shifted from intrigue to outrage. Evelyn Monroe's socialite reputation was decimated overnight. The Denver DA announced an official investigation into the illegal adoption and subsequent cover-up. That same night, Jason tucked Lily into bed. "Daddy," she said, "does that mean Aunt Marla is my family now?" Jason smiled. "She always was. We just didn't know it yet." Within days of the broadcasted confession, Evelyn Monroe's world collapsed. Longtime family friends refused her calls. Her bridge club rescinded her membership. Charitable boards erased her name. Her private estate, once a gathering spot for Denver's elite, now stood quiet, gates locked, blinds drawn. But the real blow came when the Colorado Attorney General formally charged her with child trafficking, obstruction of justice, and falsification of legal documents. Jason and Marla sat together at the courthouse the day of Evelyn's arraignment. She entered in a navy suit, flanked by lawyers, her face devoid of its usual smug calm. The judge denied her request for a sealed trial. "This case is of significant public interest," he stated. "It will be tried transparently." Outside, protesters held signs reading, "No price on a child," and "Every life matters." As the legal battle waged on, the Elise and Marla Project expanded at lightning speed. Donations poured in from across the country. Volunteers, many former foster kids, joined the team, offering counseling, outreach, and legal aid. Marla found herself suddenly in demand. Interviewed on national shows, invited to speak at universities. But she remained grounded. One afternoon, she sat on a park bench with Lily, watching ducks glide across a pond. "Aunt Marla?" Lily asked. "Do you think Mommy knows what happened?" Marla smiled softly. "I like to think she does, and I hope she's proud of us." In truth, Marla still grieved for the sister she never got to know. But through Lily's eyes, through Jason's trust, she was building something that transcended blood. A bond of truth, healing, and purpose. Meanwhile, Lorraine, racked with guilt and fear of prosecution, agreed to testify against Evelyn in exchange for immunity. Her testimony was damning. "She made the decision alone," Lorraine told the court. "I begged her to keep both girls, but she was obsessed with appearances. She thought 2 children would ruin her social standing, so she paid a woman under the table to handle Marla." Courtroom gasps echoed as Lorraine broke down, sobbing. The judge set a trial date and revoked Evelyn's passport. The next morning, Vincent called Jason with one final update. "You're going to want to hear this in person." Jason met him at the foundation office. Marla was already there. Vincent placed a thin file on the table. "We found the woman who delivered Marla to the foster system. Her name was Denise Abbott. She was a midwife at the clinic, paid $20,000 by Evelyn Monroe to falsify discharge papers and hand the baby off to a private home. Jason stared at the file. Where is she now? In hospice care, stage 4 lung cancer, but she agreed to meet. Later that afternoon, Marla and Jason sat beside the frail woman's hospital bed. Denise's breathing was shallow, but her voice still held clarity. I was young. I needed money, she confessed. But I always knew what I did was wrong. That baby, you, I never forgot. Marla's hands trembled. I'm sorry, Denise whispered. I just wanted to tell you before I go. You weren't unwanted. You were taken. Tears streamed silently down Marla's face. Thank you, she whispered. That means more than you'll ever know. 6 months passed. Marla Jennings was now barely recognizable, not just in appearance but in spirit. Healthy, confident, and radiant with purpose, she had traded cold alleyways for stages and classrooms, where her voice ignited hearts and minds. At the National Civic Awards in Washington, D.C., Marla took the stage to a standing ovation. In her speech, she said, "For years, I believed I was invisible. I thought being discarded meant I was unworthy. But I learned something powerful. Our value is not defined by where we begin, but by who we choose to become. Evelyn Monroe tried to erase me, but she failed. Because truth, once uncovered, becomes unstoppable. And I will use that truth to make sure no child is ever lost in the shadows again." The room erupted in applause. The Elise and Marla project had, in 6 months, reconnected 71 siblings, initiated a federal review of private adoption practices, and pushed a bipartisan bill known as the Family Trace Act, requiring permanent accessible records for all sibling separations. Jason, watching from the front row with Lily, smiled through tears. That night, as the three of them returned to their Denver home, Lily bounced ahead into the kitchen, excited about pancakes for dinner. Jason and Marla stayed back on the porch. "She's happy," Marla said quietly. "She's whole," Jason replied. "Because you helped make her life fuller." Marla looked out into the starry sky. "I never imagined this. For so long, I didn't know who I was. Now, I get to help others find that out for themselves." Just then, her phone buzzed, an alert from the foundation system. Another potential sibling match in Oregon. She smiled. The work never stopped, but it was the work she was born to do. Back in the kitchen, Lily called out, "Aunt Marla, I saved you the biggest pancake." Marla stepped inside, leaving behind decades of darkness. The door closed softly, but the light inside blazed on. Across town, Evelyn Monroe sat alone in a courtroom awaiting sentencing. Her once pristine reputation now reduced to footnotes in articles titled "The Price of Perfection" and "When Image Kills Integrity." The judge handed down her sentence, 15 years with no parole, citing her lack of remorse and the premeditated nature of her crimes. She didn't cry, she didn't speak. She simply looked down, smaller than ever. Justice had been served, but more importantly, healing had begun. In a final interview with Time magazine, Marla said, "We all want to be seen, to be known. My story is not just mine. It belongs to every child forgotten, every adult who survived despite it all. The greatest revenge against being invisible is to become unforgettable."